settle down quickly? Please settle down. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. What a privilege it is to stand before such an engaged and intellectually serious gathering this afternoon. Today marks a truly special occasion, the 5th edition of the CXO Leadership Series organized by IILM, a platform that has consistently brought some of the finest minds in leadership, innovation, governance right to our campus. In a world where information travels faster than ever before, where narratives shapes perceptions, and where effective communication can make or break policy outcomes, the role of strategic communication in governance has never been more critical. Think about it. How does a nation of 1.4 billion people with 22 official languages, diverse cultures, and varying levels of literacy and digital access stay informed? How does the government ensures that its policies, programs, and visions reach not just the metros, but also the remote villages? How do you communicate education reforms to students in Kerala and Kashmir at the same time? These are not just theoretical questions. These are very real, very complex challenges that define modern governance. And today, we have the privilege of hearing from someone who lives and breathes this reality every single day. Today's session is titled, Our Nation, A Billion Voices, How the Indian Government Communicates, and trust me when I say that the insights we are about to receive will be nothing short of illuminating. It is now my absolute honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished chief guest for today, a leader whose work has shaped how millions perceive and engage with one of the most critical sectors of our nation, education. We have with us Mr. Chaitanya Kumar Prasad, a seasoned civil servant with over 3 decades of distinguished service in communication, media, and public outreach. Currently, Mr. Prasad serves as the Head of Outreach and Promotion at the Ministry of Education, Government of India, a role that places him at the very epicenter of how education policies, reforms, and initiatives are communicated across this vast and diverse nation. But his contribution extends far beyond his current role. Mr. Prasad has had a remarkable journey. He previously served as the head of the G20 Education Working Group during his India's historic G20 presidency, where he played a pivotal role in positioning education as an enabler for global development, fostering lifelong learning opportunities and building resilient educational futures in the post-pandemic world. His portfolio also includes serving as the officer on special duty at the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and as Additional Director General at DD News and the Directorate of Film Festivals. And alumnus of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Mr. Prasad brings a unique blend of academic rigor, administrative excellence, and strategic communication expertise. His work involved navigating some of the most complicated communication challenges imaginable, from rolling out the national education policy to managing digital transformation initiatives, from engaging with media to ensuring that government messaging is clear, accessible, and impactful across linguistic and socio-economic divides. Beyond his official roles, Mr. Prasad is also a keen observer of cinema, international relations, branding, and geopolitics. A true thought leader who understands that communication is not just about transmitting information, it's about building narratives. Ladies and gentlemen, let us give a resounding and warm round of applause to welcome Mr. Chaitanya Kumar Prasad. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us today. Your presence truly elevates this gathering. So before we hear from our chief guest, I would like to first invite Dr. Bigyan Verma, Director IILM, to address the gathering and share a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Neha. For me, India is not just a country. I feel that India is more of a conversation. A country where 22 different official languages prevail. It is a fact that every 100 miles which you cover in this country, the dialect changes and probably even the language changes. Not just the food or the things which we wear. And I'll tell you a very interesting case study. And I've faced it and I've seen it. Like when I was in Maharashtra, Mumbai, there's a village called Sholapur. Now during the COVID time in the year 2021, when COVID was at its peak, that particular village, the percentage of the people who were getting vaccinated was extremely low compared to the Maharashtra standards as such. And it was a matter of worries for the local government and of course the Maharashtra government. So what did they do? Because none of these posters, none of these TV ads and things were working. So what did they do? The local administration, the people who were behind the scene, you know what they did? They got in touch with the Sarpanch over there in that village, and the Sarpanch got in touch with the priests of the main priests of that village, and also the teachers. And then they started moving around with the loudspeakers, and educating people that vaccination is good for you. It's not an evil. It's not going to cause some unknown disease in you and so forth. Therefore, you should save from it. And believe me, within no time, the percentage of people going for the vaccination really, really improved. Now just imagine, I'm just talking about a small village called Sholapur in Maharashtra. Now we are talking about a nation called India, 140 billion people, probably the largest population in the world today. And dealing with this kind of diversity, the uniformity is not going to work. It's the diversity and the way you can communicate that matters a lot. And now government comes out with so many schemes, so many, it needs to communicate with the people, because unless you communicate, and this happens in the organization also, and all of you will probably be working in different parts of the country, someday, where you'll face a similar kind of challenge. Your own language probably is not relevant. You'll have to deal with the local languages and the behaviors. Now, that kind of challenge you will really face in your life, and then you realize that how big this problem could be. Now, who can be a better person to discuss this? Like as Dr. Neha gave a very elaborate description of Mr. Chaitanya Prasad, and the experience which he is extremely diverse. And for a topic like this, one voice for a billion people, we need a person with this kind of diverse experience over his the working life and all. And I'm sure, believe me, there'll be a lot of takeaways, especially not just for how India communicates or converses with each other, but also for your own life as such. To be a successful manager, you really need to understand people. You need to communicate, and that matters a lot. So thank you, sir, for being over here. And I'll really thank our Director General, Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi, for, kind of inviting Chaitanya Prasad, sir, for this particular session. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir, for setting the context for today's conversation. And now the moment we all have been waiting for, it's my absolute honor and privilege to invite Mr. Chaitanya Kumar Prasad to share his invaluable insights with us today. Over to you, sir.
Which one?
these are the ifs and buts that are associated with communication, you see. When you have to speak or start speaking, there are always glitches which happen. And unfortunately, if you happen to be in government communication, we face the glitch syndrome quite frequently. So we are quite used to it. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come and speak to this August gathering. It's always nice to come and talk to a different generation altogether, I would say that, because you understand what is the curve communication is taking, right? And especially from our times when you come and talk to this kind of gathering, I would say, you need to be a little careful because you all are instant communicators and all of you are communicators and information managers amongst yourself. Each one of you sitting over here is a communication specialist, as I would say. It just happens that I am from the government, I am a civil servant. I've handled communication for the last 3+ decades, so that's how it is. But yes, what I feel as a communicator is how do we bridge the gap? How do you bring about a kind of a coherence, a kind of a consistency, kind of a clarity in what you want to say? First of all, thank you very much, Chaturvedi sir, for inviting me here. I think this is the second time I'm coming, or second or third time, I think. It's always nice to walk into this campus because the exterior reminds me of my alma mater, JNU. That's the kind of color we have at our buildings, and so you don't find this in Delhi at all. But yes, it's nice to come back to, familiar surroundings. And I remember in my 2 occasions previously, we had a very robust kind of interface. So I hope it's the same case today. Shruti ji, thank you so much. Yeah. So you came over to the office and it was a little embarrassing because you gave me an invitation letter which was of a different kind. And I said, we are not used to this kind of invite. Professor Verma, we suddenly discovered we have roots in Dhanbad. So that's again a kind of a cycle which happens, and it's a pleasant cycle. And Rahul ji is an old friend. So, I'm sorry, these are the people I know. So the rest, thank you so much. To begin with, a nation and a billion voices. That's what the whole idea is, you see. And what is a billion? It's a number, right? So when you start communicating, you're talking about numbers. It's a numbers game, right? So communication, billion voices, that too government communication. So how do you go about it? That's the bigger challenge in life. Because I'm sure all of you over here, especially your lot, are a little apprehensive as to what the government communicates. You may agree, you may largely disagree. But as a practitioner on behalf of the government, it's our duty and responsibility to tell you exactly as to what government communication is all about. And especially in the light of the kind of diversity India is. I think we are a very unique nation, as Madam was just mentioning in her introductory remark. And believe me, I've never had so much of introduction in my life. And that was a little embarrassing because each one has their own achievements and professional backup. But it was a little too musical for me. But thank you so much for saying what you said. The diversity of India, you see, in terms of language, you're talking about geography, you're talking about culture, you're talking about legacy. And the problem with our communication process is that there are multiple stakeholders. And communication is like a very favorite spice. Everyone wants to sprinkle it onto whatever you want to do. So depending upon different age groups, that's the kind of spice you're looking at, right? But it's very important as far as the government is concerned, because we are talking about government communication. So what is the kind of identity you're looking at? How do you ideate? What is the kind of identity you're looking at? What is the kind of trust? Government communication is very, very challenging because it's a question of trust. The kind of communication, the kind of trust, because that brings a kind of a legitimacy. So you cannot have a straitjacket kind of module where you say government communication is like this. Especially in the current environment where things are changing instantly, a 360-degree perspective of communication. And all of you are students of management, right? So when you pass out, and go in for your jobs, half the time the presentation will be how you project and promote and identify yourself against case studies, against issues, against the kind of corporate interface that you're going to have. So that is where communication becomes very important. And mind you, young friends, most of you at some point of time will be running into the government. You may join the corporate world, but definitely you will be working with the government. So how do you communicate with the government? Not to say you speak the same language, but what is very, very critical is the kind of language you need to integrate as far as the government communication is concerned. You may work with a Deloitte, you may work with a KPMG, etc. I see all these bright young kids coming and working for us. Now, you need to understand the language of communication as far as government is concerned. Because the government is a very different ecosystem. Right? So what I'll try to do is to cover things as quickly as possible. I have a short presentation, so I thought I'll just go over it for you. Now, something wrong? I thought. Yes.
So this is a PDF actually.
Oh, okay. Right. I think that, oh my God. Full of glitches today. Just wait. I'm just looking at my pen drive. Did I lose it? So basically, why does the government communicate? It's straight and simple. I'm sorry for the glitch, but then let's see how we do it. So why does the government communicate? It's very important, right? So in this slide, what does it matter? How does it matter? So we are talking about, we communicate policies, and when you communicate a policy, it will only succeed if people understand. No other institution or ecosystem communicates. It's a government, right? So if I communicate something to you and you don't understand, it doesn't serve the purpose, number one. So it's public communication, right? The way we are talking, the government talks, it's related to governance through a tool, the outreach, etc. And it's not publicity every time. A lot of time, government communication is misconstrued with publicity. Publicity is part and parcel. It's the bread and butter, let's be upfront. If the government doesn't publicize, you will never get to know about it, right? Even corporates do publicize, right? They at times may not do it very bluntly, but they do so, right? But you don't have, say, a Tata. The brand of Tatas will go on and on because a kind of continuity, right? They are not so brash. But the new ones who have joined the bandwagon, they are very upbeat kind of thing. They want to be present. They want to be shown as being present at the right time. If you're watching the World Cup, I'm sure all of you, the T20 World Cup, I think you should do an analysis of the kind of advertising that is going in. You just don't know what is coming through. It's like a T20 match in between overs for advertising. You see, it's an insurance company, it's a cold drink, God knows what it is, then there is so everything comes in over there, right? We have not grown up with that kind of thing. We've seen traditional cricket, and why we say so is it becomes very confusing. And the tragedy of this communication is the moment something happens, if a wicket falls or something spectacular is happening, there comes the break. There comes the break, and that is where disaster comes. Because you don't understand the cricket, right? I don't know how many of you have watched Test cricket, or you watch Test cricket on television. We come from a generation where transistor was our guide. Much to the disgust of our parents, because we used to hide it and listen to the commentaries of Australia, England, etc. But that's our generation. Today it's like instant noodle. You watch everything up and down. And you watch all your Shah Rukh Khans and everyone coming and talking about anything under the sun. That's another form of communication. And unfortunately, government doesn't communicate. So you're walking into a different ecosystem. It may not be as exciting as it may be, right? So we're talking about legitimacy, trust in participation, We talk about transparent communication. Why do we do so? Because there's always confusion in what government communicates. There's always a kind of a skepticism that flows in. Misinformation, yes. Half the time people don't believe what we are doing. So as a communicator, that is the biggest challenge that I face, or I have faced in my career. And distrust, especially when there is a crisis. And I'll just give you an example. When this unfortunate air crash took place at Amitabh, that's another side of crisis communication, of how you need to communicate. I think you should take it as a case study. We're talking about branding in Air India, for example. Air India, I'm sure some of you could take up that case study. They thought that if government transferred ownership to Tata's, Tata was a brand which has survived well, there's any trust in the idea of Tata's. Why is it that Air India suddenly, for no random reason, is just not taking off, coupled with this kind of unfortunate accident which took place? And the kind of misinformation that happens. And that is happening to a great extent because of social media, and all of you, I'm sure, are on social media. Because today the flavored spice is Instagram, right? Nobody wants to go to Twitter. Facebook is history, but it's Instagram, the real culture. So as corporates, the young corporate about to enter, how much definition can you give to a reel? In government also we've joined the bandwagon. Let's be upfront. We are also victim to influencers now. We also are asked to do reels. But honestly speaking, there has to be a balance between the traditional patterns of communication and the new outreach, right? Feedback, yes, I don't want to explain it. Effective governance, the idea is to make everybody inclusive. If I'm talking to you over here, my interface and conduct should be such that everyone is inclusive. You are understanding what I'm trying to say. If you have any clarifications, please raise your hand. So that's very important for me. Because the challenge that comes in is, if you're not able to get the audience together when you speak, there's a problem. There's a huge problem. If there's a kind of a disconnect. For example, if you go anywhere, I go to Bachchan and to the other training institutes, and you see this huge bandwagon of 300, 350 probation officers who are there first time in life, catch whiskers, you've joined civil service, and suddenly you see 3 or 4 of them, or 4 or 5 of them dozing off. So that, why I'm trying to tell you this, because you are going to talk, I talk about government communication, right? So for me it is a feedback that I better change tracks. I need to change tracks. If somebody is calling us just switched off or looking on his phone, that means there's a problem with you because you're not being able to translate and transmit the real idea, right? Now, what is India's communication challenge? As you said, 1.4, languages you already mentioned, digital first, youth plus offline population. I think digital first. This is the biggest problem that we are facing. Everyone is on the phone. You come to my office, everyone is on the phone. You go outside, everyone is on the phone. So communication is being transmitted instantly anywhere and everywhere. So that is a big problem as far as I think we are facing. And that's more problematic because of government communication. Because it's instant. Something happens. Like for example, today is the AI summit happening in Baat. Now, what is the kind of communication that is coming out? Traffic jams, chaos at the gates. How do you enter? You have these huge advisories of Delhi police. I don't know. It's better, but then you have to just see through the information because it's so small. That is not the kind of communication that you should do. If you see today's ads of Delhi, it's so convoluted. You just don't understand which road to take and how. So who is at a loss? The citizens, right? Everyone has to go to office, right? When we did G20, there was chutti for 4 days to ensure that roads were clean. It's not the case today. What I'm trying to tell you is that the digital first and the youth, we talk about our demographic strength. So that is something that the government is very conscious of as far as the communication is concerned. And that's very, very critical for us. So everything that we do, we keep that demographic dividend in mind. High media noise, low attention span. I'm sure anyone over here, how much of attention span do you have? If I take you through a pathway of government communication, 10 steps, everyone will fall asleep. How many of you watch Doordarshan? Sorry? Nobody. Anyway, I know this is the standard answer I get. How many of you watch news? No, आप लोग नहीं. How many of the young generation watches news? No, raise your hand. I just want to see the numbers. Okay. What do you watch? You watch it on your phone or you watch it on television? Television. Okay. Phone? Everyone on phone? Acha. No, I'm coming to it. How many of you read newspapers? Sorry? How many of you read a physical newspaper? No, how many of you read physical newspapers? No. That's what I'm coming to. Well, it's interesting why I asked this question again. Let me tell you, and I'll give you a very sane advice here. I'll tell your generation whenever I go. I told your brethren at Britain also. Same answer. When you will prepare for your exams, when you prepare for your interview, mind my words, and you'll remember me for that, for whatever it's worth. Apps will not work for you then. Unless you read a physical newspaper, and that too being management students. Scrolling and quick reading and fast reading is the order of the day. You belong to that generation, that ecosystem. But when you come to prepare, when you go for interviews, there will be case studies. So how do you do that? That's very, very important. Please cultivate the habit of reading a newspaper, especially a business newspaper. Whether it's Mint or Economic Times, I've not come to give you a lecture on that. But please do that, it will help you. And keep notes. In communication, this is very,
Sir, so as we're talking about like news, youth and every kind of things, so like in a socio-culture and linguistically diverse country like our India, and how can you like say about what AI as a new tool will help the government of India to communicate the one clear nation message without any information asymmetry?
yes, that's a separate lecture, but nonetheless I'll tell you. When you talk about AI assistance, that's very good. Don't forget one thing, that's my view, I may be wrong. Technology is good to assist you. It cannot be a substitute. Keep that in mind. You are an identity in yourself, your understanding of communication will be yourself. It will be different from the lady sitting next to you. Right? Two of you can't merge. But what you can merge is the use of technology, but when it comes down to your own idea of how life has to be, that's very important, right? We can have a discussion later on, it's a separate thing. I don't want to waste time with everyone, right? So, from information to narrative, I'll quickly go through. Shift from announcing, storytelling and narrative building. This is what government communication is all about. Emotional connect, very important as far as government communication is concerned. Government has to emotionally integrate itself to its citizens. I'll give you some examples, you will understand why I'm saying this. If I don't emotionally integrate with each one of you, my job is finished. That's very important. When the government communicates, when ministers speak, when secretaries speak, they speak on behalf of an ecosystem which matters in the lives of people. That's very, very critical, right? Policy framed as people-centric outlook, very important. Sabka saath, sabka vikas. It's not a cliche. We are educated, so you may not believe in that. But people-centric communication is very, very critical in today's world. It concerns people, concerns you and I. When we do the budget, we always look for those areas which interest us. So the budget is designed in such a way, this year's budget is very short, and it was scripted in a different fashion because it was all people-centric as to how people would understand. So when you go into a corporate world and you communicate, you have to communicate in a language which suits and identifies with the entity that you are representing. That's very, very critical, right? When policy succeeds, when citizens see themselves in it. If I communicate something on behalf of the government and you are not able to identify yourself as one of them, not necessarily for every policy announcement, but if as a citizen I am not able to identify myself, then what do I do? I just shrug it off. I become skeptical. I become kind of indifferent. That's not what we want, right? That's very, very critical for us. Now, core principles of government messaging, this is very important. It's not rocket science, it's not Latin. Clarity over complexity, some of the stuff that we do is very complex. So we need to be very clear. As a communicator on behalf of the government, I need to be very, very clear as to what I'm saying. Consistency across ministries, as somebody was saying, no asymmetry, yes. I need to have one straight line vertical, right? I can't go like this. But I need to say a language which is acceptable by all and which is understood by all. So that's a challenge. Credibility and authenticity. If government becomes, the credibility of the government goes down in communication, there's a problem. So when you walk into the corporate world and you look at different designs and ecosystems, the credibility factor would be very important. I'll give you an example. Look at Amul. I'm sure all of you see the ads. The brand Amul, that girl, small girl. It has survived generations. Why? Because the kind of innovation, the kind of ideation that whoever writes is just brilliant. And they have changed generations. They have changed age groups. It is something which is suitable. So that is something which I, as a government communicator, would like to emulate. Right? When I talk about credibility. So anything coming out of Amul, you just say, oh wow. Something happening today, tomorrow again, Amul is right there. So that is instant kind of communication which comes in. Inclusiveness, yes. Accessibility. Government, this is not again something which is very esoteric. Accessibility of government communication is very, very important. Very, very critical. Responsiveness and feedback we've already talked about. Multi-channel, this is what we do. And all of you know this, I don't want to go deep into it. We talk about print, we talk about social media, outdoor, grassroots, yes, because you deal with the last mile. There are media dark areas in government communication where nothing reaches. So that is where grassroots media comes in. Interpersonal communication. If you ask me honestly, if you are suppose working with Hindustan Lever and you are asked to design a rural communication strategy, I think it is the grassroots communication, your understanding of grassroots communication, your understanding of the diversity of India, your understanding of the language issues that come in, the kind of audience, the kind of clientele. So that is where grassroots communication is important. That is where perhaps social media may be of help, but understanding regional media is very, very critical. So if you intend to work for a marketing company later on, or work in for a think tank, this ecosystem is very, very critical for you. And a good example would be if you can trace the history through ChatGPT on Lifebuoy. Lifebuoy soap, which was the brand ambassador, for Unilever. Just do that, how they evolved that red colored brick into what it is today. It's a very, very good case study. Hindustan Lever, Unilever. Especially the soap marketing, and what they have excelled is the kind of sachet marketing that has come in, and how they have penetrated rural areas. So that is very, very critical. Events, campaigns, and cultural touch points. Again, very important. How do you utilize culture, right? We are talking about Viksit Bharat 2047, which is a culmination of anything and everything which talks about the idea of India, right? Now this is Digital India, the new public square. All of you are aware of it. I just wanted to reiterate it. Social media, real-time update, leaders as direct communicators. This is the difference. The Prime Minister communicates directly. Not only him, leaders across the board. President Trump is an example. You may not agree with what he does, yes. But the point is, he is moving on the social media space, right? And that is an issue which has caught the attention, not only about him, but all global leaders. Any important event, anything which is happening, this is how social media comes into play. Data-driven outreach, everything is algorithmic. Now data is your resource. Rich data. This is our USP as far as India is concerned. This is the reason why all leading AI companies have gathered at Bharat Mandapam talking about the richness of India's data reservoir. Now, whether it's good or bad, I am not going to comment on that. But it's a very critical tool in communication. As to how do you design your approach. When you join the corporate world, you will have to be hands-on as far as the algorithms are concerned, the kind of data sets that you're going to deploy. But, BUT in capital inverted commas, let me tell you that each one of you will have to exercise your own personal sixth sense as to which way the ball is swinging. That is very, very important. It cannot be driven by what you call algorithms to a large extent, right? So this is strategic communication planning. I thought this is what we do. This is just to tell you exactly how do we touch upon things, identifying the audience profiles. We talk about message objectives. I don't want to go into detail in that. I'm sure all of you know that. The media mix is very important. That is what has changed as far as the government is concerned. How do you do media mix? It's not just advertisements per se, though print advertisements catch your eye every day as far as a daily newspaper is concerned, but that is a kind of a different business model. But you're talking about community networks. How do you community networks are concerned, plan, timing, reputation and follow-up. In government, you need to repeat, unfortunately. Nobody gives us that cognizance. We need to get back to everyone that hum kar rahe hain. We are doing it. So that is government communication. To an extent, at times it may be repetitive, it may be boring also. So let's be upfront about it. Data for measurement impact, coordinates approach for unified messaging, I told. So that is why we said Swachh Bharat Mission. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. In the initial years, perhaps it did succeed. But at the end, everyone is aware what Swachh Bharat Mission is. We have not taken it to another level. Why? Because we are ourselves to blame. My area should be clean, but my neighbor's area should be full of filth, which I throw there. So that kind of public. So these are the limitations as far as government communication is concerned. I can't do much beyond that, right? This is IC. We talk about polio, do boons in the beating. I happened to work on that very closely when I was in the Ministry of Health. Now this is classic. I'm sure all of you have known it, studied about it. This is a very good subject to understand continuity of branding and ideas, ideation, narrative building, obviously done by Mr. Bachchan. That's another very good case study of technical intervention, brand management. We are talking of storytelling, we are talking about how the idea moves, and that through over a period of time. So we are talking about citizens' education, what are the tools that were deployed. We are talking about participation, reinforcement of community messaging through involvement. That's very important. This was what it was, right? So this has stayed, 0 cases today, but still it is being repeated. Polio is still being repeated today because you need to come back, need to reinforce the idea. That's very important, right? And loudspeakers. You have not seen that phase. We have. When the rickshawala used to move through the town, colonies to invite people to take children below the age of 5, I think. Remember? 5 or 6 to go and get themselves vaccinated. Door-to-door canvassing. Door-to-door canvassing. You had these billboards, you had these the traditional methods of communication, which is different. Now, we talk about behavior change. This is Anganwadi. Nutrition is important, and all these are very specific government-related interventions which I thought you should know. Long-term habits, storytelling, role models, health, sanitation, nutrition. Unfortunately, this is an area which is very much neglected, not only by the lower middle classes, it's also neglected by people like us. For us, health maintenance, health management is a fad at times. If I go to a gym, it's more of fashion. Because everyone goes, so I also need to go. But do I really understand the communication process that is associated? That's very, very critical. Ladies and gentlemen, communication can give you an overarching kind of situation. Government gives you that. So is the case as far as the corporate world is concerned. So are you going to correlate and integrate that together? Ownership, community involvement is very important. As students of MBA, you need to understand the dynamics of communication in a community setting. Please do that. Try to understand the matrix that is involved. So that's one thing which I thought you should know. Jan Andolan and Jan Bhagidari, these are two concepts which you should know. Jan Andolan involving people. This is what the government USP on communication is. Low cost, high intensity campaign involving people. So you have all these runs that take, marathon runs being advertised, and everyone wants to be a part of it, right? I'm just giving you that example because you'll be able to integrate and collate it much more easily. Behavior change, I mean, this is Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao now. It's working, maybe in other rural areas of the country. Haryana has had a big leap forward in terms of its determination ratio. But that is Jan Andolan, people. So when you join the corporate world, it would not be a bad idea if you have Jan Andolan under your belt, because it will cost nothing. It will be good visibility as far as your institution or organization is concerned. Jan Bhagidari, very important. How do you involve people in policy implementation? Something is happening, get the Samoa together. This is what the government does, because there is a time when you don't want to spend money. Because communication is expensive, especially if you go to a multi-platform kind of an approach. So how do you do Jan Bhagidari and Jan Andolan? That's very, very critical, right? G20 was a very good example. I mean, I'm sure all of you knew the whole country, there were 230 meetings organized in 59 cities. So that was the kind of Jan Andolan. Everybody was part of it. In the Ministry of Education, one is quite fortunate for the simple reason that we have the battery of schools and colleges to be a party of the whole thing. So that helps us as far as our outreach, etc. is concerned, right? This is it. Mann Ki Baat. How many of you listen to Mann Ki Baat? I've heard of it. No, upload. Anyone listens to Mann Ki Baat? Just one hand. Sorry? I don't hear any voices, but once or twice. Anyway, now I'll just give you a perspective to it. It's not because the Prime Minister does it, no. But it is a very good example to understand as to how do you use the emotional appeal of an individual. So in this case, it's the Prime Minister. How do you relate it to the people? Number one, what is the kind of narrative that is built through it? What is the kind of storytelling that comes into play? What is the kind of communication the government is trying to position? And when it comes from the head of the government, it's head of the state, head of government, whatever you may call it, it's a very different feel. That's number one. So I won't want to go into details of Mann Ki Baat. How it is done, that's a separate approach altogether. The other one is the Padma Awards, People's Awards. So if you see the kind of people who are getting the awards, that elitist mentality is no longer there. So that is also a kind of a communication message that you're giving. If you translate it into the communication matrix, people far-flung from God knows no man's land, walking up and getting it from the President of India. It's a very different feel altogether. It's inclusive communication. Believe me, it's inclusive communication. It's a different outreach kind of, which no management institute will be able to define. It's a new culture of teaching, a new culture of analysis that is coming. So that is one thing I wanted to know. MyGov is another great example as to how you interface. I mean, I'm giving you these examples as to how government is trying to interact and interface with people. I'm sure you've seen MyGov for yourself, right? Citizen engagement, I already told you, very important. As young generation citizens of this country, citizen engagement, feedback loop, very important. This is what government focuses on. So you need to learn the ropes, because when you walk into your corporate world, there will be a different kind of a communication loop that you will have to report upon. So understanding the community, understanding your role and responsibility is going to be very, very important. So that's very, very important for you. Now, ethics, trust and responsibility. This is very important. This is what government wants and should and does always. It's not always equal to propaganda. No, anything that comes out of the government is not propaganda. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to communicate, we have to provide information, we have to disseminate, right? Respect for facts and institutions, we are talking of long-term trust, over short-term accountability in public messaging. That's very important. There may be instances where you may not agree. Let's be upfront, because that's a perception, that's a different kind of a perspective. But broadly, these are the pillars on which we try to operate, right? Now, what are the key takeaways? Key takeaways, communication central to government. I'm sure all of you realize it, right? We are talking about narrative shapes public perception of policy. If I build a good narrative, AI summit is taking place, the who's who of the world has arrived, that's a narrative that I'm putting into place. Scale demands simplicity, consistency, and very important. Government scaling is too high. Storytelling for us is too intense. So I need to get these, but I need to be simple. I can't go round the bush, round and round in concentric circles. It doesn't work. So that's very important. And every voice matters. We believe in that principle. In a democracy, again that's a matter of debate, let's be upfront. But the broad contours of government communication come down to this. These are the, I think, the basic principles of. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful words and the way you shared the complexities of communication with us. Now we move towards what promises to be an equally engaging and interactive segment, the fireside chat. I would like to invite Dr. Shruti Gill to join Mr. Prasad on for an interactive conversation that will delve deeper into his experiences, insights, and perspectives.
So I'm going to start with a little experience that we had when we had gone to invite Mr. Chaitanya Prasad, and had gone along with Dr. Chaturvedi. So the moment we walked into his office, it was a sight to be seen. So he had posters of old Bollywood movies which adorned his walls. So we had movies like Shri 420, Amar Ujala, 420, Mera Naam Joker. So that is the passion which was there up on his wall. And that is Mr. Chaitanya Prasad, the head of communication for you over here. So let's give him a good round of applause here. So sir, over a period of, ever since I met you, I've been reading this book. So this is a book which has been authored by him, The Age of Influence. And sir, coming from this book itself, where you've spoken about that today the architecture of communication has undergone a paradigm shift, right? So we are actually moving from the static system of transmission to a media landscape which is very dynamic and ever changing. So going back, peeping into your professional journey across bureaucrats, culture, cinema, global dialogue, if influence is impact, what impact would you like to leave or would like to have, let's say, 10 years from now, and on whom?
Thank you very much. I don't know what impact I can have. We are a part of a system which tries to be impactful or projects to be impactful. The challenge would essentially be that how does the next set of stakeholders understand what impact is? My book was called The Age of Influence. Why did we use the age of influence? The age of influence, because influence today is not singular. There are multi-stakeholders that are involved. There are multiplicity of themes and ideas, etc. So 10 years from now, I think the communication matrix will be more complicated. It will be more instant. I don't think we'll have the patience to absorb information, because we are getting used to shortcut methods. I don't know 10 years from now what will be the method. When we started our journey, we had to be very rigorously involved in understanding what communication is. But today it's changing. Apart from the technology that comes into play, and my friend over there asked me a question about AI. I don't know which way we are going to swing. Will it replace? Unfortunately, I don't know what ChatGPT has in this ecosystem, but today I think we've stopped thinking. Even in government, we take the help of Perplexity or ChatGPT. It gives us a roadmap, but when I talk about influence 10 years from now, I don't know what kind of a roadmap will come into play. But my appeal would be that you basically keep yourself grounded to reality, number one. Remain grounded to your roots from where you come from. So if the ground rules of IILM teach you something, believe me, hang on with it till the time you have attained glory in your life. Because this grounding is going to stay. What was taught to me in college, I did my college, it was Jesuit college, St. Xavier's. I studied at Allahabad. I mean, every phase of my life was a lesson in itself. It impacted my future. But the ground rules which were sown at graduation and inter +2 level. JNU was a different ball game, because that was a different world where we needed to absorb what we wanted to absorb. But yeah, influence, I would say, at the end of the day, not being repetitive. Especially for this audience, I would feel they should be very proud of the foundation in which they are today. What they need to do is to build into their personality the philosophy of this institute and translate into their vision of the future. When you leave the campus, do not just have the umbilical cord cut. That would be a disservice to this institution. Because this institution is teaching you to walk the talk as far as corporate culture is concerned. Right?
So today, in fact, coincidentally, we had one alumni, BBA 2019, 22 Baat student, who called me from the gate. He said, "Ma'am, hi, I'm Kunal Khatri, and I'm here just to say hello." So that was such a moving moment for a couple of us who met him. So let's go to your very, very interesting profile, sir. You were the director of International Film Festival, Goa, where influence was more exercised through storytelling, right? Yeah. So is there any particular role model or any Bollywood celebrity or any cinema which you have used as an example for your storytelling? If you can share something with the audience today.
Well, that's why I walked across to the table. Well, this is my new book. It's called When Branding Met the Movies. Yeah, so this is, yes, so I thought I must bring a copy along. It was released at the World Book Fair. I've not come to do publicity for it, don't read me wrong. But she asked me a question. This incorporates the story of cinema and branding. It's basically a commentary of how in cinema branding took roots. We've grown up in the age of black marketing. We used to walk in the sun, go to the picture hall, to be dejected because the guys there would just close after 10 tickets or whatever, in that sweltering heat. But the challenge was to see Amitabh Bachchan's movies first day, first show. So that was a different world altogether than to what you have been exposed. You walk into a air-conditioned environment of PVR and it's all digitally done. There are no there are no paper tickets to look. You don't suffer the ignominy of house full. So the black market was, they were the local dons. Yes. My stint at IFI was a revelation because it gave me an opportunity to see cinema at a very close from very close proximity, to see these superstars or stars, which we are all thunderstruck if you see them at the first glimpse. I wouldn't like to name people, but yeah, one person who would stand out, and I have given references in my book, is a gentleman all of you know, is Mr. Bachchan. I've had the fortune, Amitabh Bachchan, I've had the fortune of working with him when I was in health. In my polio days, I've worked with him also, met him at least a dozen times, and every time you meet the man, you just wonder what kind of a guy he is. I always say that if you were one of them, if you were Mr. Bachchan, how would you react to the kind of adulation? How do you keep yourself firmly rooted to the ground? If you're talking about communication, I'm sure a good case study for students out here for branding would be do an analysis of how KBC has evolved. 25 years of KBC. What KBC was as a money minting or money garnering platform to what KBC is here today. You look at those social, the kind of community stories that come into play, tapered with Mr. Bachchan, the way he analyzes, interacts. He's a guy who can, mix with all age groups. He's had the toddlers, KBC also. He's interacted with women from, I would say, people who have suffered in life. He has interacted with all kinds of people. The language of communication, it's not a money pathway anymore. It's more of sympathy, empathy, human emotions. So that is one guy I would always stand out, because whenever you meet him, you just don't know. And one example I would give you is that when he met me for once, I remember I opened the door for him and he said, "Sir, मैं आ गया आपने जितने बजे कहा था." I said, "Sir, kindly don't embarrass me. Sir, हमको मत बोलिए." नहीं, मुझे तो बोलना, आप भारत सरकार. I said, "Nothing doing, sir." No, I'm just giving you an example. And the other example I could give you is that we had gone to Coorg and he was shooting for this polio ad. So I was sitting on the staircase and suddenly I saw someone standing next to me, and he was obviously tall. We're talking many years ago. So he looked at me and I looked at him. Then I got up. I said, "Sir, मेरा नाम ये है." So he said, "अच्छा, आप भारत सरकार के अफसर हैं, यहाँ आए हैं हमें देखने कि मैं ठीक से काम करता हूँ कि नहीं, और आप जाके रिपोर्ट करेंगे अपने मंत्रालय में." His friendly interface, the language he uses to make you comfortable is unbelievable. That is something. And the other person who would, you would get absolutely startled would be, I can't talk about the current generation. I wouldn't like to talk about the current generation stars. And that's a different picture. The other person, sorry? No, Veda Rahman. Grace, poise, sophistication is unbelievable. Yeah, that is, but then it's
an a learning curve. Cinema, what appears from the outside is definitely not what it is inside. They have their own pitfalls, they have their own plus and minuses, which I can't discuss in public, but at the end of the day, it's a very memorable experience. To see it's a totally different world. Glitz and glamour is a totally different world. There's nothing to do with real life situations. Some of them can easily bring it down to real life situations. But that is what it is.
So when I was, in fact, asked by Chaturvedi sir to do this fireside chat, and the topic happened to be on communication, I went back to the famous movie, The King's Speech, which was released in 2010, starring Colin Firth. And this was basically a historical drama on King George V, wherein he was facing this challenge of severe stammer. So as a leader, he gained influence not because of the position that he held or the authority that he was enjoying at that point of time, but he gained influence by finding his voice under pressure. So what is so important? Is it finding your voice or being heard amidst the noise?
If you ask me honestly, I think it can be a mixture of both. If there is noise, if there is cacophony, how do you make sure that you are relevant? Number one. And under pressure, as you rightly said, that's the best time when you can communicate. How do you influence the narrative? How do you influence people or the audience or stakeholders to, give an ear to what you are trying to say? That's very, very important, right? If you look at how the government communicates, there have been instances when the government tries to explain something, people give it a thought. They may not agree, but then they give it an ear. So it's a combination of both. I mean, in the sense, under stress, yes. You need to influence. If I have come today, I need to talk a language which each one of them, these young boys and girls, if they go back and feeling, okay, there are a couple of points that this gentleman said, just rang a bell inside. Otherwise, this generation is so strong, they'll say, pata nahi kya, kisko bula ke le aaye. No, that's a fact. I mean, let's be upfront. They'll say, what is it? They have not, it doesn't work that way. That's extremely critical. So when you talk about finding your voice, it's very important that you understand your ecosystem, you understand your challenges, you understand as to how you want to integrate those challenges into the practice of the narrative. That's very, very important.
So coming back to this Mann Ki Baat series, that you were the force behind it, you were the creator behind it. So what was the strategic intent of reaching to the masses, to the rural areas, to the people, to the citizens of India? What was the intent behind it?
You see, if you look at it, I would request all these young colleagues of mine that they can just have a look at the Mann Ki Baat way it is done last Sunday of every month. Just try to understand the power of communication and the power of reaching out to stakeholders. That's very important. The intent, I didn't curate it, let's be upfront. I was in charge of news in Doordarshan, so when the recording, etc. was done, our challenge used to be to put it on television. So what was said, if you are speaking in a class and I'm asked to translate that into a visual depiction, that was what we did. But that was a challenge because you had to understand what the Prime Minister was trying to say at a given moment when he described somebody, described an event, spoke with someone, portrayed a certain image of the country, projected an idea. So how do you project that? Because it goes out to anybody and everybody in the country, right? So that was it was a learning curve to understand different complex situations and then take it forward. So that was very, very important. That is what we learned. So we became masters of situations and perceptions as to how you understand things to visualize. So that's why we become masters to visualization. We think it is coming, so you prepare yourself beforehand.
Thank you. So I'll put it to the audience now. Any questions from faculty, students here? Students first. Let's have some questions pouring in. This is your time to interact with Mr. Chaitanya Prasad, so let's have some questions pouring in. Anshika, would you like to ask?
Good afternoon, sir. It was really nice hearing about your thoughts over government because. Good afternoon, sir. It was really nice to hear about your thoughts on government and the communication. I wanted to ask you, like, how do you, like, you are working with government, how do you measure, like, the citizen of India has understood a policy and it is not just exposed to them, but they have understood what is in the policy? What is the communication strategy you apply over there?
We use the traditional parameters of communication when we roll out a policy, the accompanying tools that are done, right? Which is television, radio, etc. The traditional way of reaching out, that's how the government starts. Simultaneously, you have this social media bandwagon, right? So when you look at the social media matrix, if the trolling is intense, you understand you need to do much more to explain what you wanted to do, right? It's important, right?
Yeah, it also
Or the YouTubes, or the influencers, because today everyone is a communicator. I don't agree with what you said, I just go on camera and utter and say, and if it's something which catches attention, the virality of it is, it's easy and done, right? And what you need, unfortunately, is happening is the kind of mistrust that is created, or the miscommunication that starts, which is dangerous, right? Just because you can speak and you can convey, look at the kind of communication filth that is happening. That's a problem. That's a huge problem. We start with the traditional method of reaching out, explaining everything. There are always naysayers. This is our country, so we can't avoid it. तो वो बोलते हैं तो फिर हमको ये देखना पड़ता है कि वो क्या बोल रहे हैं.
So how do you deal with this? Like, if there is any kind of miscommunication?
No, it's a crisis management. At times, if it's a crisis management, there are certain protocols we go through. At times, it's a nightmare. But then, it's a fight to the finish. I mean, if you have tried to say things that we are not doing well, we need to come back with you with more coherent or more explainable information. And if you are hell-bent on saying X and Y are not suiting you, I can't do much. What happens is that we need to prevent the negativity. The problem in today's day and age is the kind of explosion that takes place, the negativity starts. For example, AI Summit is happening today. I'll give you a very good, the best of the world is happening here. But somehow the focus is traffic jam, confusion, citizen harassment. Now how do you do that? I mean, we are not used to seeking pain, absorbing pain. I'll break traffic rules, but hum sudharenge nahi. No, that's how it is, right? I mean, in Delhi it's less, but you go to Chennai, you go to Bangalore, wrong side driving, from the other side people start coming in. Now what do you do? What can the government do? Can't do a damn. I'm just giving you a stray example. You see, everything can't be done with the government. The government expects others also to contribute. And criticism is not the only avenue available. There are better things to do and suggest which the government will and definitely listen to. Right?
Thank you so much.
One more question.
So sometimes the mode of communication is not just language or your the way you talk or you express. I just recently read a holding which was striking out a sentence. Hindi ke liye do dabaएं, and it was struck down, promoting our national language as Hindi. What are your views on that, sir?
everyone can see, there has to be a certain consistency, clarity. I can't put up a hoarding which is bound to get a backlash. It's very stupid of whoever did that. You see, if it comes on from the government platform, there's a big problem for us. You see, how do you defend? You give a wrong voting somewhere, there's a problem. You know, who's there? Because once the fire is lit, we have to keep the fire engines moving, right? First of all, ऐसा content तो बनाना ही नहीं चाहिए. और अगर बनाया तो जिसने approve करके, the gentlemen or the department, they should be taken to task. Communication is not just sending out something. What is the impact of that communication? Right? In the one thing I'll just remind you, G20 they decorated all the roads with those lovely flower pots. It was your city, it is your town. रात को उठा के सब ले गए. कौन ले गया? No, mind you, who took them? It was not the unfortunate people of today's society. It was people who had these snazzy cars and opened their boots and put the flower pots in their car. It was caught on camera. Now what do you do? When we go abroad, we are the most disciplined, civic sense people, right? We dare not throw a piece of paper on the road. But here, what do? We do anything. Pan bahar, pan whatever, outside, inside, anything is done. Then, and then you expect the government to do Swachh Bharat mission, it doesn't work. That's why I said citizen responsibility, हम communicate कितना करें? घर साफ रखिए, ये ऐसा की. No, it's not possible. It's not possible. There has to be a sense of belongingness, a sense of understanding. People need to incorporate that.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, sir. As it is rightly said that a good communicator is one who simplifies complex problems. So that is exactly what you did for us today. As a token of our deep gratitude, appreciation and respect for you, sir, I would like to invite Dr. Chaturvedi, Dr. Bigyan Verma and Professor Rahul Mishra to kindly come forward and honor our esteemed chief guest. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause again for Mr. Chaitanya Kumar Prasad. So as we draw close to today's truly remarkable session, I would like to take a moment to express our heartfelt gratitude to everyone present here today. First and foremost, Mr. Chaitanya Kumar Prasad for taking his time out from his busy schedule for us. Your insights have been valuable for our students today, sir. Special thank you to Dr. Chaturvedi, Dr. Verma for their unwavering support for such events. Heartfelt thank you to Dr. Shruti Gill for moderating the fireside chat. And most importantly, thank you students for being here and being such nice audiences today. Please join us for high tea outside. Thank you.
Wait.